Hello, I'm creating student feedback. The assignment is to create a paragraph of an essay and put a quote in it. Use a quote in a paragraph. So let's look at what we've got. An inverted pyramid structural formula could be found very complicated and not always understood. Okay, there's some problems in the English here. An inverted pyramid structural formula could be found very complicated. And you see, look, here's our verb here, could be found and not understood. Could not be not always understood. I can see why that's there, but it really doesn't work. It's not an inverted pyramid structural formula. The inverted pyramid structure in news reporting might be considered complicated and is not always understood. I think very complicated, don't really know. Alright, so that's the main point you want to make in the paragraph. Let's see how it works. Some writes an example. Trainees in newsroom not always can define which elements of the news are most newsworthy and approaching a difficulty. All the important points of the story to include in the first paragraph. So this doesn't really make sense. Some writes. Who is some? Something writes. Let's just try this. For example, trainees in a newsroom trainees not always can is cannot always spell that right define which elements of the news, well, which news stories, okay, or elements of the news, elements of parts, which stories and angles, because that's part of the news, are most newsworthy. And so following the inverted pyramid have difficulty, not approaching a difficulty, have difficulty approaching, but have difficulties deciding which points of the story are most important. Not important. You see, it's not which important points of the story, is which points of the story are most important, and so should be included in the opening paragraph or lead. Okay. Got that right? So Galtung and Ruge argue that this sense I think it should be, is innate and can't, I think there should be cannot really be taught, even though, or not thought, even though it is possible to list the characteristics which are typical of news stories and to analyse both the process and the outcome of news selection. Okay, this quote is a bit puzzling. Why is it innate? Why do they think that it cannot really be taught? It's by no means clear from this quote. So there's a poor quote selection going on here. The other thing is, you're citing this in Mackay, but you've got the original somewhere else. So you should have gone to the original, really. Right, so Galtung and Ruge, who are they? Galtung and Ruge, key authors on the concept of news selection. On news selection. Right, authors of a key paper on news selection. We can add their credentials. This works here. Argue that this sense of what? We have to explain this in the quote. It's worth it, is innate and cannot really be taught, even though it's possible to list the characteristics which are typical of news stories and to analyse both the process and the outcome of news selection. Okay. So now we come to your final paragraph. Oh, Galtung and Ruge, 1973. Yeah, I think we have to put that. Cited in Mackay 2013. Get rid of the P dot, get an extra word back for our essay. And then you've got, right at the end, sorry, a bit messing about here. In other words, both scholars suggest that journalists, not one journalist, should have a natural sense of news sense. A natural news sense which cannot be taught, I think we mean thought, in any institution, and it can only be innate or come with experience. Okay, they don't say it comes with experience, but probably that is what they mean. Maybe they don't. Maybe they say there are some people who are attuned to the public mood in a way that other people can't. So I don't think they're really saying this comes with experience. It comes with your particular individual abilities to relate to the rest of mankind, I think is what they're arguing. Now let's see what our initial point was. It's complicated and not always understood. Okay, so that's what we need to explain the quote in terms of. So not both scholars, these scholars are suggesting that journalists not should have, there's no sense, normative sense that they should have it, it's that they do have it. That good journalists have a natural, let's put it in inverted commas because it still might be, even though it's that one person, it doesn't mean it's from nature. It could be partly social, we don't know. Have a natural news sense which is not a matter of understanding rules, and so cannot simply be taught. These scholars are suggesting that good journalists have a natural news sense, which is not this sense is not a matter of understanding a set of rules or criteria, but of being able to relate the day's events to the public interest. Let's put all the public interests to the public interest, all the public's interests. The type of person, let's put that. Relate to the public through the day's event, through linking the day's events to the public interest. I think this works better. You see, then what you can say is this may partly explain why many have difficulty. This may partly explain why many have difficulty in relating to the inverted pyramid is intuitive or tacit and involves tacit understanding rather than more formal understanding, something like that. I partly explain why many have difficulty in relating to the inverted pyramid, because it's intuitive and involves tacit understanding rather than a generalizable and more formal understanding. Yes, I think this is slightly better. Anyway, not bad.